Hello. I hope you've enjoyed reading the introduction to my Lent book, The Way of the Desert, and hearing my introductory video. So now Lent has arrived and it's time to get going. The first section of my book lasts for 11 days from Ash Wednesday to the second Saturday of Lent. And this week and a half follows the first leg of the Israelites' journey from the Red Sea through to Mount Sinai. It's a time when the people find themselves miraculously liberated from their years of slavery in Egypt, a freedom that they celebrate with joyful singing and dancing and exuberant bashing of tambourines. It's also a time in which they begin to adjust to life in the desert and to a new dependence on the faithfulness of a God they hardly know. Once the initial excitement is over, it proves an uncomfortable transition. There are scares about food and water. There are questions about Moses' leadership abilities. There's a local tribe called the Amalekites who start to make life difficult. There's a whole lot of grumbling, and even the beginnings of a ridiculous rose-tinted nostalgia for the good old days in Egypt, when at least they knew where the next meal was coming from. And meanwhile, God quietly provides. He provides them with food, with water, with healing, protection, good leadership. He provides them with a fresh picture of himself as an eagle who has carried them out of Egypt on his mighty wings. He provides them with a vision for wholesome, faithful living in the form of the Ten Commandments. He even provides them with a beautiful place, the tabernacle, as a focus for their worship in the midst of the drab, rather colourless world of the desert. So will the Israelites appreciate all that God is doing for them? In the battle between grumbling and gratitude, between fickleness and faithfulness, which will win out? First signs are not encouraging. If the story of the parting of the Red Sea marks Israel's creation as the people of God, the story of the worship of the golden calf marks her fall. In days 1 to 11, though, we also look at a more positive parallel story in Matthew's Gospel, at Jesus' progression from his Red Sea experience, his baptism at the hands of John, via his 40 days in the desert, through to his Mount Sinai, the place from which he preaches the Sermon on the Mount. It's always possible in life to learn from the good and the bad, the joys and the struggles, from inspirational stories and cautionary tales. And while there are plenty of cautionary tales in our readings from Scripture this week, it's in Jesus, in Moses, and indeed in God himself that we find our inspiration. There's integrity to be found here, and wisdom and joy. Grumbling or gratitude, fickleness or faithfulness, that is the choice that these readings hold out before us. Grumbling is one of those words that sounds just like its meaning. You can hardly say the word grumble with a cheerful face. Just try it. And how easy it is to fall into a way of life where grumbling, along with its bedfellows, anxiety and faithlessness, becomes the norm, both in response to little things like traffic jams and wet weather, and in relation to the much bigger challenges that life throws our way. But while Christians are certainly not immune from times of great pressure, struggle and discouragement, a grumbling Christian should be a contradiction in terms. As those saved by grace, our default position should be one of the deepest gratitude. And though it's rather an old song and perhaps a little sentimental, my prayer is that our readings this week would help us to count our blessings, count them one by one. Or as St. Paul put it, during a desert time in his own life and ministry, rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say it, rejoice. Thanks for listening.